Hello, everyone. Welcome to the College Football Playbook Podcast. I am Marc Givler. Got Tyler Shoemaker here. The T-Shoe Index. Check that out at T-Shoe Index on Twitter. Power ratings, projections, point spread, gambling, all sorts of good stuff there. Tyler does a lot of work, a lot of spreadsheets that he shares on Twitter, and we'll have a home for some of that stuff here soon. Can't wait to share all that. But definitely a good resource here. We were just talking, and I tailed him on a WNBA game tonight, and he came through. So cashed that one. So I'll vouch for him. Hopefully you've enjoyed our conference previews. We went through all the Power 5 conferences. We're going to do a quick group of 5 preview. We're not going to go through every conference. We're just going to kind of talk about the top group of 5 teams. Maybe, is there a playoff spoiler in here? That type of thing. But we're just going to go through some of the top group of 5 projected teams through the T-Shoe Index. And we'll put some stuff up on the screen. Everyone can kind of check it out and agree, disagree in the comments, whatever. Tyler, before we put up the sheets here, is there a group of 5 team this year that you think could make the playoffs? Is there a Cincinnati here, or is that kind of a pipe dream this year?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Cincinnati kind of had the benefit of 2021. There wasn't a lot of top tier Power 5 teams. Ohio State was kind of down. It lost to Michigan, lost to Oregon. There was just some weirdness that year. This year, there's no shortage of contenders at the top of the sport. And I think all of those teams would get the benefit of the doubt over any of these group of 5 teams. For that reason, plus, UTSA I've got as the highest rated group of 5 with only a 10.7 power rating. That's just not playoff level, really. I'd have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure my 2021 Cincinnati rating was much higher than that. So the combination of I don't think there's a great enough team, and there's way more competition for the playoff spot this year. I don't see it happening.
Well, it's interesting because some of the teams that some of this is about how you did the previous year, building up some trust and some capital with the selection committee or just people in general watching the sport. A lot of those programs have since been gobbled up by power schools, like especially the Big 12. Really, a lot of those programs have been gobbled up. So, it's the talent, the pool of really strong group of 5 teams has been watered down a little bit with conference realignment that's been happening over the last year or two. So that's another thing I think to consider here. But you've got UTSA 1. We got the graphic up here. I'll show it to you guys another way here with some win total projections and things like that. You can look at offensive ratings, defensive ratings, etc. 2 points better than any other group of 5 team is not completely insignificant, right?
No. I mean, that's a pretty substantial gap from 1 to 2. And then, there's a clear top 4, and then it really drops off. You got UTSA, Fresno State, Tulane, and Boise State, and then a huge drop off to Memphis. So I think there's a clear top 4 there in the group of 5. And I just did a podcast that's Tulane based the other day, and they were not happy with me that I had them as the 3rd best G5 school this year.
Well, a lot of these schools are losing key players. Lost key players to the NFL draft, so it will be interesting. Again, it's always about reloading at some of these places, and do they have the ability to do that? Boise State's obviously a program that over the years that's been able to spoil things for Power 5s. A lot of talk about them maybe ending up in the Big 12 here at some point, being in the next wave or possibly benefiting in some way from all the conference realignment. We'll see what happens with that. How does Boise look this year?
Yeah, Boise's a team that they started last season pretty bad by their standards, but I think they made a quarterback change midway through the year, and they really finished the year strong. So they've got a lot of momentum, I think, coming into this year. As you can see there, their offensive rating a full field goal above average, which for a group of 5 school is really good. And on the defensive side of the ball, they're really good too, as they project about 5 points above average on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that's a program heading in the right direction. I won't be surprised if they get scooped up by a Power 5 school. I'm honestly surprised it hasn't happened yet. With basically 2 waves of realignment in the last decade, I can't believe no one scooped Boise State up, because that's been a very consistent program over the years.
Yeah, there's still, like, just looking on this list, the 2 I keep hearing a lot about, and SMU a little bit as well, but the 2 I keep hearing a lot about, and I even had a college coach tell me this, gosh, this was before all the craziness really hit the fan. This would have been spring of 22, ran into a college coach on the road during the spring evaluation recruiting period. And he told me, he said, look, the next 2 big jumpers from group of 5 are going to be Boise State and Memphis. For a little bit different reasons, but both have pretty much the facilities and meet the minimum requirements on attendance and things like that. Stadium size. I know Memphis is doing some renovating right now to try and get everything more competitive on that front so that they can become more attractive. But you get the Memphis media market is a thing. I mean, that's a big city. And then of course, Boise, you've got, just their history of success on the football field, ability to compete, and people like to tune in and watch them. I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't say they've got like this huge national fan base, but a lot of people who aren't maybe Boise State fans still like to watch their games. So they draw some eyeballs, and, that area of the country is expanding. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but like, Idaho, Montana, like people are moving out there. Those towns are starting to kind of go nuts. Those mountain towns are starting to go nuts. Like that's kind of a foresight play, I think, on maybe some population shifts that are happening on a kind of a smaller scale. But that's what I've been told. We'll see what happens with that. SMU. Let's go there for a second. Tanner Mordecai gone. How much did that play into your ranking of them, and kind of just, I guess, go through what they are, strengths, weaknesses, et cetera, of their rating?
Yeah, I mean, it is something to consider. It didn't necessarily impact their rating, because Preston Stone, I believe his name is, who will be the quarterback this year, got significant snaps last year. I think Mordecai was banged up there for a period, so Stone got some snaps last year, so he's got some experience under his belt. He looked fairly decent when he did play. So while obviously Tanner Mordecai would be an upgrade there, it wasn't enough to make me like really move the needle and adjust their rating. I am curious though. They're in year 2 of a new head coach. We'll see kind of how that goes. That's always kind of a tricky proposition, because it's like year 1, they're not, players that you recruited necessarily. So do you take a step forward, or do you start to regress? So we'll see. That is something I've got my eye on. But I do just want to point out with SMU. I talked about my points added metric being kind of a fun metric. You look at SMU points added 33.6, because their offensive rating is awesome at 35, and their defensive rating is well below average at 32. So that, again, that's a really fun team right there with UTSA. So if SMU and UTSA played, my numbers would make that total 64 and a half. So, just really fun teams to watch here in the G5.
Yeah. Stone was actually a 4-star recruit. He was a highly recruited guy. I actually went to his high school when he was, I think, a sophomore. So he was being recruited by Ohio State, was being recruited by a lot of big programs. So that was a big deal when they landed him, actually. So kind of a unusual situation, I guess, for a non-Power 5 school to be able to lose a quarterback like that, but have a guy like that waiting in the wings. So they should be able to overcome that. Throw the list back up here. You mentioned Tulane fans not happy. Why are they not happy? And where were they most upset with you?
They, again, it was a Tulane based podcast. So, I don't think they were necessarily objective about it, but Tulane had a great season. If people who follow the show will recall, like we gave out Tulane plus 2.5 against USC in the Cotton Bowl last year, which cashed. They won outright. Tulane had a great season. A lot of that season hinged on running back Tyjae Spears, who's now gone. But that they're a program and a coach that development rating is excellent in my numbers. So like they did get some benefit of the doubt here with their rating, but UTSA, and Fresno both just came out higher. I mean, there's nothing that Tulane is bad at. They project to be above average on both sides of the ball. I think their offense projects to be the strength, because they're about 5 points above average on offense, about 3.5 above average on defense. So, should be some more fireworks there with them, but they've earned the benefit of the doubt with their performance on the field. So that's why they're one of the few G5 teams here with over a touchdown positive power rating.
Fresno State, Jalen Gill transfers from Boston College. That's going to be a nice pickup for them. Was recruited out of Central Ohio to Ohio State. Had a couple good years at Boston College, so that could be a big one for them. What else do you see there with Fresno?
Yeah, Fresno. I mean, that's a team and a program that just historically plays really good defense. We generally, from a betting perspective, you see Fresno State with these super low totals in their games, similar to like a San Diego State. The weirdest thing with Fresno State, and I looked extremely close at their rating in particular because they're currently 6-point underdogs to Purdue in week 1. But I actually project them as a favorite against Purdue. And I looked long and hard at that because I'm like, okay, what am I missing here? But I actually project them as a favorite against Purdue, a 4-point favorite against Purdue on the road in week 1. So again, just kind of
swing?
Which is
That's
rare.
Unusual.
My numbers generally are not that far off at the market. So when they are, alarm bells kind of go off and I start to, really look through everything even closer than I normally would. But I'm telling you, I looked at every metric and factor that I consider when I'm putting my model together, and I will definitely be on. Matter of fact, I've already bet the game, but I'm on Fresno against Purdue in week 1.
Take the points or money line?
I have both. Yeah. And if the line, and this is, I wrote an article for Cleveland.com last year about this, and we can maybe get into this more throughout the season. But if the line is 6 or 6.5, the math makes sense to buy the half point or the point to get the full 7. There's a lot of people out there that'll say don't ever buy points, but I've researched it. I've worked the math out. The math makes sense when it's on 6 or 6.5 to buy to get the full 7. So I would buy to get the 7, and I'd also probably put some on the money line too. Just depends on how much faith you have in TSI, I guess.
Well, that'll be a big one early for you to continue to build the credibility. That'll be a big one.
Absolutely.
What do you see? We mentioned UTSA and we talked a little bit about them and what that ranking means for them. But what about UTSA kind of gives them the edge here over all the other group of 5s?
Yeah, I mean, I think you see, I mean, their offensive rating. I mean, they are electric week in and week out. So we've said this a million times, but earning the benefit of the doubt with your past performance, in terms of a preseason projection, and they've earned the benefit of the doubt with their offense. Really like what they've built there with Coach Traylor. They're super fun to watch. I love watching UTSA games, especially when they had made it to the Conference USA Championship, in years past. Just a super fun team to watch. Again, like like a North Carolina that we've talked about, if they can just learn to stop some people with good talent on offense, they could be a truly elite team. But they tend to get held back by the defensive side of the ball. Although I do project them slightly above average on the defensive side, so maybe they're turning a corner here. But if they can ever get the defense to somewhat resemble what they can do on offense, they'll be a scary out for anyone.
Now, East Carolina plays Michigan, right? Early.
Yes, they do. And that is a game that my numbers also have a huge discrepancy on. And we've seen, I think that game opened Michigan minus 36.5. And I think that's already ticked down now under 35. Under 35, I think it's 34.5 now at most spots, which is under that key number of 35. And maybe that has to do with the Jim Harbaugh suspension. If that's it, like, that's insane to me, because I would never adjust up, especially in a game with a 35 plus point spread. Like, the coach isn't going to make a big difference in that, in my opinion. But yeah, I project that game more, I think like 25-26. So some value there on ECU in week 1. I personally am probably not going to play it, just because playing these huge spreads in week 1 historically have been kind of dicey, as we've talked about before. So I'm probably personally staying off of that. But if you're going to be watching that game, you want a little something on it. ECU plus the points, plus 35 or more would be my play.
Any other early season plays with group of 5, or we've hit a few good ones here. I didn't even realize you had the ECU thing was so out of whack. I think I knew about the Fresno thing, and there's some other things we talked about that I knew about. But are there any other like early season, like Hawaii Vanderbilt, right? That's an early season matchup, and that's like a big, like, isn't that a big one that people are talking about? Like the spread being kind of funny or whatever. I know you hate that when people say it's fishy or anything like that. But the spread's maybe a little surprising. I'll just use that word. But is there anything else that?
Yeah, that one. I mean, my numbers would favor Hawaii plus the 18 in that game, but that's not really one of the top discrepancies I have here. I'm looking through. Again, I'm weary of playing these huge numbers in week 1. So a lot of these I wouldn't personally play. Like Auburn, UMass, there's a big discrepancy there. UCF, Kent State, Oklahoma, Arkansas State. I mean, these 30 plus point lines I don't really want any part of. But in terms of more manageable lines, Old Dominion plays Virginia Tech. That line's 14. I think maybe at some spots now it's 13.5. So again, I would, even if my number shows a huge discrepancy, I still want to get these key numbers of 3, 7, 10, 14, which is kind of unique to football. and basketball, you don't have that. But in football betting, so for this Old Dominion Virginia Tech game, my line is 3. I project Virginia Tech to win by 3. The line's 14 or 13.5, but I wouldn't bet 13.5. I know that sounds crazy, but if there's 14s available, like I want the key numbers. And I know that sounds crazy, but over the long term, you will win more by being more selective like that. Akron Temple week 1, I do really like that. I project Temple -2. That line is currently Temple -11. So, there's some these G5 games really is where the value is at. If you're a serious bettor and like you want to bet to win money long term and not just for entertainment purposes or whatever, like G5 is where it's at. Because when you're betting, if you're trying to just bet on the Georgias or Michigans or Ohio State games, those lines are generally sharper, especially in the bigger time matchups. Ohio State, Michigan, very rarely going to find value in the game, those type of things. But these G5 matchups are where the value is generally.
Well, that's a good note to kind of end on. Some good games there early in the season to take a look at, guys. Like I said, we wanted to kind of brush through the group of 5 this year, which is kind of a crazy landscape right now with all the conference realignment going on and everything else. But glad we could hit on that for a little bit. Again, if you can subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/@CFB Playbook, that would be greatly appreciated. If you did enjoy this video and you hit the like button, that would also be appreciated. We'll have some, again, I know I teased this last time, it is coming. We will have some other news coming soon about our channel and some other things we're doing. But appreciate everyone watching and listening, and we will talk to you soon.